Hello and welcome to my underground lair, where I try to escape from the feels like 107 degrees outside. The house is 100 years old. There's a basement portable air conditioner that's not very portable, that's just running full tilt, and it's kind of shitty down here, but what are you gonna do? It's summer, it's Maryland. I'll escape one day. Until then, I do what I can. Speaking of doing what you can, this video is about the Rebel Transport. It is very Rebel Transport shell-centric. This is what you're in for if you get a set of castings of the shells from Mike Salzo. I'm going to be starting a Patreon shortly, where it's just a good way to have everything in one easy-to-find space. I will be giving my paint codes as I go along, well, my paint mixes, really. And the Rebel Transport will be in its own separate little category. All the part IDs, a achingly step-by-step instruction guide on what I am doing. You're free to do whatever you want. I'd love it if you joined in. It's going to be where I put most of my projects from now on, just because it's scattered to the winds as it is, and it's very difficult for me to answer questions when I have to go find something, and it'll be much more condensed. So I'll post a link to that when it's ready. In the meantime, let's talk about the shells. So, Rebel Transport shells will come in 5 pieces. The first 2 pieces will be the main body. It was broken up for realistic casting, pressure casting. Very easy to join. I'll get to that in a second. And then you get the 2 bottom armor plates, whatever we're calling them, and then the top engine / mount hider. And yeah, let's get going. So, what are we talking about here? I had a nylon shell grown in China as a sort of test bed to make sure all the parts fit. The original, of course, was, you can see this line that was like a mother shell, and then all the plating was placed atop that, and then chips placed atop that. That's the way they built it originally. That's probably the best way to build it if you want to be faithful to the original, but very fragile because it's very thin. And actually, when I grew this, or had this made, grown, whatever, we had a wall tolerance of 2.4 millimeters, if I'm remembering correctly, which means this whole little perimeter is twice as thick as it should be. It's great, actually, because when we decided, let's just mold and cast it to make everyone's lives easier, it was easier for the resin to flow into, 2.4 millimeters thick as opposed to half of that, which would be 1.2. I went to school. So all you're going to need to do is take a Dremel with a drum sand attachment and just go along this line and have the wall thickness. And where you see a step down, that should be half, that should be half. So there's a couple little areas that might be a little tricky, but do your best. I'm probably going to angle it a little bit because it really doesn't register thickness wise on the underside, and it would just be a little stronger. It's a very, very strong, very non-warpable shell. Mike used a tough resin, pressure cast them, and again, that's why it's in 2 pieces. It was split along a natural line. So all you really need to do besides that is just knock out these, areas where it should be a hole, and I'll cover that. There is a little hole right here where I believe a set screw was for locking it down onto the armature. This gets cut off, a little bit of flashing. Mike has added a little bit of a lip to ensure accurate registration, actually on this part. So this comes off. That will help you key it and lock it in, and it's completely hidden, so you don't have to worry about removing this. And again, cut all this. Again, wall thickness here on these guys will need to be halved. I'll show pictures of that when I do it. That's going to be coming up. And then again, with these parts, just have the thickness, and with this you just need to clean up a little bit of flashing and glue it down. This was pulled out because it was uncastable. Otherwise, you're not going to see it in once everything's put together, honestly. So, you know, if you're really hell-bent on having it look exactly like the original, you can add some sheet styrene and pull that upwards. Or, you know, if you're hardcore and you want to go full ILM, use this as a guide and make your own bucks and make your own styrene. There's probably a couple chips I will replace anyway. If I, you know, find it's soft or whatever. There's a couple little places where it's ever so slightly soft. Kind of don't care. You may, you know, your mileage may vary. Now, Jason, what are these? That is a key for the laser cut acrylic to lock down into. All those files will be provided for free on my Patreon page. You just have to download it and find somebody with a laser cutter, and you can make all those parts too if you so choose. If you refuse to join, that's fine. Just email me if you've bought the shells. I'll just send you a PDF and you can do the same thing. And I will show you what I'm talking about right now. Okay, so now that I've joined these two things together, I have changed my suggestion a little bit. Grind everything away, flat. Grind the tab away, and that way you've got the front and the back pieces clean enough that you can get this seam line nice and straight by sanding it carefully against a piece of sandpaper on your workbench. Once you have that done, 040 styrene, put a sheet of styrene down on the table, take this top part, put it against the table, draw that half moon shape, and create a shim. You can see it right here. It goes away once you prime it. You can see it here. I haven't finished cleaning it up. That gives you the length you need. I am also going to recommend that when you make this plating, this very top or bottom part, depending on which orientation you are, don't lock this down until you've built this, because I have mine, as you can see by this little spacer right there, a little too far forward by about 1 to 2 millimeters. It's most important that this back end keys to this back end, because there's a lot of you know, little greeblies going on. So you know, mine turns out perfect in the back, about 2 millimeters, maybe 1.5 millimeters too far forward on the front. That doesn't matter to me, nor should it matter to you. But if you're hyper concerned about 1 millimeter or 2, like I said, leave this guy slotted in to the assembly, but don't glue it down until you've finished this. So the next step will be to, like I said, route all this stuff thinner, take all of these holes and make that thinner. And I think it makes the most sense to build all the little sub-assemblies that poke through the top that will get hidden or unreachable by this once this locks down. Once this gets mated to this permanently, it's going to go very quickly. So yeah, the next thing will be putting the armature in here and cleaning this guy up to accept the last few pieces that need to happen before this gets locked down to the shell. So very exciting.